Wiltsie again, and as I promised, I would be back this week, and I'm back again. And I wanted to talk about my book, Ramtha and Me, One Woman's Journey in a School of Ancient Wisdom. This book is about my journey in Ramtha School for 23 years with my husband, my children, and my grandchildren. My children were young babies and young children when we got involved in the school, and my grandchildren were born and were brought up in the school. My husband and I were on a spiritual journey starting in Saudi Arabia. We started reading all kinds of books together, and we found that when we came back to the States, we had a thirst to understand and to know more about who we were, why we're here, and what this is all about. So I have more to tell about all that, but I'll talk about the book first. I decided to go back to school in 2000. I'm a chemical engineer by education, my first education. Graduated from Newark College of Engineering in Newark, New Jersey, and went out into the field, and I was with Pfizer in New York City. I was with Aetna, and later with Johnson & Johnson as a chemical safety engineer, and later as supervisor of building services. We decided at some point to go to Saudi Arabia with my husband, myself, and our little girl, and had another baby over there and got pregnant with a third before we came back. We were in Houston. My husband worked for Exxon, and we were on a journey to understand ourselves, and that's when we met and found information about Ramtha, which brought us up to Washington. So in the state of Washington, we joined Ramtha School, and as I said, for 23 years we were there in the school. But I had decided to go back to school, and I decided to go to Evergreen. Now, coming from an educational system like engineering, in 4 years they chose all my subjects except for 2. Everything else was chosen for me. So the 2 subjects I got to take were music and music. That's it, in 4 years. So to go to Evergreen and have them tell me that, oh, well, what do you want to study? It's like, what do you mean what I want to study? Yeah, you can study anything you want. It's like, that was like mind-blowing. And so I decided that, oh, I'll try the school out. My first year in Evergreen, I was with my professor, and in class one day in the second quarter, she said, one or more of you will write a book about your experiences. And so I'm sitting there, and I hear this voice inside say, you're going to write a book. I say, oh, no, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. So there was this argument going on in my head about writing a book. And so anyway, I said, I'm not writing a book. I don't know anything about it. And that's the end. So a few weeks later, my teacher again says, one or more of you are going to write a book about your experiences. And I hear, you're going to write a book. I said, how many times do I have to tell you I'm not writing a book? Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, you're not. So it says, go ask your professor. So I went up to my professor. I said, well, Sarah, I was thinking about writing a book. What do you think? Oh, I think it's a great idea. I said, what? And so, yeah, and if you write about the school you're in, that'd be amazing. And so I get back in my seat, and I hear this voice say, see? I said, I'm not writing a book. I'm not writing a book. That's it. I'll think about it, but I don't think I'm going to write a book. I don't know anything about it. What do you want me to do? So then the nagging voice in the third quarter, write a book, write a book, write a book. And so I said, okay, I'll write a book if I can get a contract. Evergreen has contracts where you write a contract, and a professor will take your contract. And if a professor takes your contract, then you can study whatever it is that you want to study. So I decided to write a contract to write a book. And I went to a big seminar with all the teachers, and no one wanted to take my contract. And so I got back home, and the next day I'm riding to school, and I said in my head, I am not writing this book unless someone takes my contract. So if you want me to write the book, you need to come up with the contract. And so I get to school, and the voice says, walk across Red Square, go into the library and talk to Sarah, another Sarah. I said, Sarah? Yes. So I walk across Red Square. I go into the library at Evergreen, and I say, is there someone here by the name of Sarah? They said, yes. So I said, okay, Sarah, my name is Amber. She said, yes, I'll do it. And I said, what will you do? She said, aren't you the one that wants to write the book? Your teacher told me about you. And so, your professor, and I'm willing to take your contract. I said, you will? She said, yes. And so I handed her my contract, and before school's out for that year, I had a contract with the professor. Now, the interesting thing is that all through the summer, I'm really stressing out about this book because I've never written a book before. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing. And so the first day of class, I go to see this professor, and on the way, I drop my kids off at school, and I'm on my way to go to Evergreen, and I'm having a conversation in my car with a whole bunch of people in my head, and then I realize, who am I talking to? And so I stopped, and I looked, and there's no one in the back seat. So I get to school, and I say to my professor, look, I just had this really strange experience on the way to school. And she said, what was it? And I told her. She said, oh, all great writers have that. I said, they do? She said, yes, of course. Okay. And so the first quarter, I wrote 4 chapters about the school, about the teacher, about what we did as far as what was an ancient school of wisdom about. And then the next quarter, I decided I would write the next 18 chapters. Problem is, I got on another project, and 10 days before the quarters ended, I have not written anything. And so I'm like stressing out again. It's like, okay. And so there's a thing called mirror focus, and I went into my mirror, and I looked into the eyes of myself on the other side. I said, look, I told you I didn't want to do this project. You insisted. So I went ahead, and I said, okay. And now I have 18 chapters to write, and I only type with 2 fingers. How am I supposed to do this? And I hear, dictate it. I said, oh, what a great idea. Of course, dictate it. And so for the next 10 days, I would sit in the mirror, and I'd say, okay, what are we writing today? I get the first paragraph, and then download all the pictures. Second paragraph, download the pictures. Third paragraph for the next first paragraph for the next chapter, and download next chapter. First paragraph, download the pictures, until I had 4 chapters in my head. And then it says, go write it. And so I went down, I just did da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I finished 4 chapters in about 2 hours. And I did that every day for 10 days until all the 18 chapters were done. So that's how the book was written. And so I handed it to my professor, and went in with a stack of CDs this big and said, here. She said, what's that? I said, it's the book. She said, you did all that in this quarter? I didn't want to tell her I did it in 10 days. She said, yeah. That's amazing. I didn't think you'd write anything. So I said, well, that's what happens. When you don't know what you're supposed to do, you just do it because you think you're supposed to, and then you end up doing more than what anyone expects. So the expectation of writing a book was way out there in my mind, and so much less in the professor's mind. Anyway, that's how my book was written. And so I want to thank you for listening to me. Again, it's all about allowing yourself to move into spirit. And it will be, we're looking at putting it on Amazon, but in the meantime, if you are interested, my email is aheartwalker@gmail.com or Ramthaandme@gmail.com. If you write to me, I'll send it to you. Thank you. Bye.